Are we coming to the end of the American century? The 20th century was American century, and it was expressed in superior military capabilities and technological innovations. At the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, the United States became unrivaled, pulling diplomatic and political strings and consolidating its preeminent status. It is the exuberance of a hyperpower in a unipolar world bent on establishing its politics and economy as the images of the world. The United States dollar became the world's reserved currency as the United States dominated global institutions like the United Nations, NATO, World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. Never in world history had a country commanded such influence. The United States military expenditure almost doubled that of the rest of the world, and this is what I call military inequality. Is it a word of the fall of America? I don't think so. But it's a word of the rise of the rest. It doesn't mean America is falling. It means others are rising. And America is refusing to fall. But others are rising very fast. And it's about China. As America rose, it went into alliance with Europe. But that alliance almost became insignificant because America redefined the principle of national sovereignty. You could see what the United States did with the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq in response to 9/11. That is the redefinition of sovereignty. That nations can be invaded and taken over. In 2004, the neoconservative Charles Krauthammer wrote these words. Let me quote him. He said, on December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union died and something new was born, something utterly new, a unipolar world dominated by a single superpower, unchecked by any rival, and with decisive reach in every corner of the world. This is staggering in history, not seen since the fall of Rome. That is a description of America's dominance. America's rapid economic growth between 1870 and 1950 would see it account for 18.9% of global GDP in 1913. And America accounted for 27.3% of global GDP in 1950. You can see the steady rise. It peaked at 35% in 1944 and hovered around 20% at the turn of the 21st century because others began to rise. It seemed that the United States' hegemonic influence was unassailable. But with the emergence of new era China, things might have taken new shapes. Is it the end of overwhelming American power? This expected transition to a stronger multipolar world order, with China a commanding influence, is the continuation of the pattern that threw off the United States as a dominant power after World War II. Europe had used the opportunity of colonialism and industrial revolution to shape the world in Western image until its gradual decline began after World War I and took a very sharp dive after World War II. Having been colonized by Britain, the fact that the new world created by the United States bore the image of Europe made it a continuation of Western influence. The West would become the United States, Canada, Australia, and countries of Western Europe like Germany, Britain, France. It was this alliance, led by America, that won the Cold War. They displaced the Soviet Union as an ultra-hegemonic influence. The Soviet Union collapsed, and Russia was the strongest part of the Soviet Union. Russia controlled the Soviet Union. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Georgia, Uzbekistan. But the Soviet Union collapsed, and the federating units went on their own, and Russia stands alone today. But you can see, Russia still feels that Ukraine, it's critical to its survival. Therefore, the Russian-Ukrainian war. Oh, there is a book I didn't come with. Why did I forget that book? Lovely book. I love that book. It is a book written by Martin Jack, entitled When China Rules the World. When China rules the world. We have 3 copies of that book. I bought that book 10 years ago. Was it 10 years ago? You know, these days the way the year flies. Let me say averagely 6 years ago. Yeah. So I still have 3 copies. I archived them. I just said I'm going to archive this book for the future in case anything happens to one of my copies. But I'm ready to give out at least 3 copies of that book. Yes, you can contact us on WhatsApp. And when I say give out, yes, you know what I mean. You give me something and I'll give you the book. But not something equal to the price of the book. Martin Jack, in his book When China Rules the World, argues, I quote, "The meltdown of some of Wall Street's largest financial institutions in September 2008 underlined the shift in economic power from the West, with some of the fallen giants seeking further support from the sovereign wealth funds and the United States government stepping in to save the mortgage titans, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mac, partly in order to reassure countries like China, which had invested huge sums of money in them." He says if China had started to withdraw these monies, it would have caused a collapse in the value of the dollar. Even China is investing in the United States. The point Jack makes is that the sovereign wealth funds sustaining the United States economy at the height of the crisis shows the disparity between cash-rich East Asian states from decades of surplus and the United States suffering from years of deficit financing, proving that what was termed a global financial crisis was truly Western financial crisis. You get the point? As Britain, France, and Italy were in the midst of the crisis, China posted double-digit growth rate with a banking sector with healthy balance sheets. But that is changing a bit in China. If Goldman Sachs 2007 projections are considered, by 2025, the Chinese economy will be almost equal to that of the United States. And by 2050, China will become the largest economy, doubling the size of that of the United States, in second position. India follows in third, and Japan in fourth. Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and Indonesia follow in that order, with only 2 European countries of Britain and Germany in 9th and 10th position respectively. Can you see? Power has shifted to Asia. That if you follow the Goldman Sachs prediction, Britain and German economy will be behind Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and Indonesia in the years to come. No African country is mentioned. Somehow, we'll fix that. Yes, we will. This is an indication of a shift in the balance of global economic power. Former Prime Minister of Britain, Theresa May, in her January 2018 speech, that was 6 years ago, in that speech to the Republican Congress members in Philadelphia, Theresa May recognized a changing world order. She talked about a post-Western world. And when you listen to her, she brings a broader understanding into the subject we are discussing. Theresa May.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
The end of the Cold War did not give rise to a new world order. It did not herald the end of history. It did not lead to a new age of peace, prosperity, and predictability in world affairs. For some, the citizens of Central and Eastern Europe in particular, it brought new freedom. But across the world, ancient ethnic, religious, and national rivalries that had been frozen through the decades of the Cold War, returned. New enemies of the West and our values, in particular in the form of radical Islamists, have emerged. And countries with little tradition of democracy, liberty, and human rights, notably China and Russia, have grown more assertive in world affairs. The rise of the Asian economies, China, yes, but democratic allies like India too, is hugely welcome. Billions are being lifted out of poverty, and new markets for our industries are opening up. But these events, coming as they have at the same time as the financial crisis and its fallout, as well as a loss of confidence in the West following 9/11 and difficult military interventions in Iraq and Afghanistan, have led many to fear that in this century we will experience the eclipse of the West. But there is nothing inevitable about that. Other countries may grow stronger. Big, populous countries may grow richer. And as they do so, they may start to embrace more fully our values of democracy and liberty. But even if they do not, our interests will remain. Our values will endure. And the need to defend them and project them will be as important as ever. So we, our two countries together, have a responsibility to lead. Because when others step up as we step back, it is bad for America, for Britain, and the world. It is in our interests, those of Britain and America together, to stand strong together to defend our values, our interests, and the very ideas in which we believe. This cannot mean a return to the failed policies of the past, The days of Britain and America intervening in sovereign countries in an attempt to remake the world in our own image are over. But nor can we afford to stand idly by when the threat is real and when it is in our own interests to intervene. We must be strong, smart, and hard-headed, and we must demonstrate the resolve necessary to stand up for our interests.
State Affairs with Edmondo Below is live.
Theresa May there, talking about our post-Western world. She made that speech as the Prime Minister of Britain in January 2018 in Philadelphia in the United States of America. It is not about exaggerating the emergence of the West and overstating the decline of the West, but it is a reminder of the lessons learned from issues of the past that made the West the powerhouse of world economy. Note that a precondition for being a hegemonic power, including the ability or otherwise to preside over a formal or informal empire, is economic strength. Military strength is tied to economic strength. So Nigeria's economy is weak. It cannot be a hegemonic power. When your economy is weak, when the land is riddled with poverty, it cannot be an international influence. You saw the way Niger called our bluff. Burkina Faso called the bluff of ECOWAS countries because ECOWAS as a bloc is not powerful enough. The economy is weak. Even when they threatened blockade of Niger and Burkina Faso economies, yes, there were some impact, but they survived. African countries are weak. We need to make them strong.